thrilled for it.
Presenting France with Turbo Booster Jet Engine.
Nexa.
Wow. All right. So this is where you have to seriously take care of the teams that have little to play for. Because Sunrisers Hyderabad have dominated this game in the end. Because 42 runs is a big margin of victory and an equally big one of defeat for RCB, whose net run rate also takes a blow. How costly could that be if they are to compete with the Punjab Kings for what could be a top 2 playoff spot? But the Sunrisers prevail after getting 231 on Nexa Presents. ESPN Cricket for Timeout. We try and understand this game with Tom Moody, Anil Kumble and Dustin Silgardo. A game that was set up nicely, 173 for 3 at one stage. And we thought, right, RCB are very much in this. Where did it go wrong, Tom?
Well, where did it go wrong? I think, firstly, it would have been nice if either Salt or Kohli batted deep.
Right.
And I think that would have helped. But then again, in saying that, when Jetish and Patidar were at the crease, they looked like they were on track. And I think the loss of Romario Shepherd, first ball, David coming in injured, that just didn't help them. And I think if Romario Shepherd was around for a dozen balls or David was fit, I think we possibly could have seen a different outcome.
Yeah, till the 15th over, they were on par.
Yeah.
They needed, about 65 runs in 5 overs, which is doable with so many wickets in hand. Rajat Patidar was not hitting it the way we've seen him do.
Yeah.
So he was struggling a bit. So that's where I think they lost the game. And once he got run out, Romario Shepherd getting out, Tim David, of course, being injured didn't help them. So I was a bit surprised with the kind of strategy. I mean, if Tim David was anyway not going to be able to run, then you might have as well used him earlier and then said, okay, just go and try and smash it around. I know they were looking to sort of keep him right till the end, hoping that he wouldn't be able to bat. But for that to happen, one of Salt or Virat had to bat through 16, 17
so you would
overs.
have said if David was unable to run, which they knew, you could have still used him differently. The problem would have been the same.
Yeah, I know.
Being able to run.
But I'm saying, you could have used him earlier on to just go and smash. You're going to get 10 balls. Don't run, but just try to hit. Because I don't think he was finding it extremely difficult to even hit it. So I'm not sure how you could have used him. But if you didn't have a choice of not using him, when he came on, it was game over. You needed to even run those singles or twos because it was already 15, 16 runs and over.
The point that we finished the mid-show with, which the two of you started on, Shepherd being used early, especially with David's handicap now in this particular innings with the way it went. It felt like that looked like an even smarter thing if they were bold enough to do it. Instead of a Mayank Agarwal, Rajat Patidar back-to-back, had they managed to keep the game ahead and then just have to work it around.
Yeah, I felt that it would have been a good time to bring him in maybe at 2 down. But as Tom was saying, the thing is Jitesh and Patidar actually were on track. Yeah. And then it was just those 2 overs. It was a brilliant over, to be fair, from Nitish Reddy.
Yes.
I think our forecaster had it almost even before that over. It was about 47% or 48 Bengaluru. And then in that 1 over, it suddenly became 30%. And I think the big thing, we were talking about bowling cutters into the pitch. They tried that early and it did look like it was sticking, but Salt and Kohli just played it really well. But in the end, then they went back to the full ball, the Yorkers. And that's where Nitish and I think Malinga nailed 6 Yorkers in that over.
So those are the overs.
And Nitish also started with Yorkers or low full tosses. Another big thing I think was in 10 of the first 14 overs, RCB had managed a boundary of either the first or second ball.
Yep.
So they were kind of leading the dance. Okay, they know if they've hit a slower ball for 4 now, it might be the full one next. Here, Nitish started off with 2 good Yorkers and then he was reading what Jitesh is going to do. He knew Jitesh would try to do something, went with the slower one. So I think those 2 overs changed the game.
The other thing I think that they tactically missed a trick is that they lost their first wicket at 80. So they had a good start, had a solid foundation, which is exactly what they needed. I don't think Agarwal was the right person to go in at that point. I think that's when they could have really rolled the dice and either gone with a Tim David and said, look, we know you're compromised, just see if you can bomb some boundaries here. And you never know, a player like him and the power he's got, he may hit a quick 30 off 10 balls or something like that. If not him, Romario Shepherd, right on the wave of the confidence that he's got of that innings that he had a couple of weeks ago. And, hopefully that is the match-turning moment.
Yeah, or even a Patidar maybe. Just
Yeah,
move him
yeah,
up
well,
one, because
just-
Mayank is, I mean, it's his first game.
Exactly.
Why would you put him in that position? Yeah.
Yeah.
But the importance...
Those two back to back, I mean, certainly hurt RCB. You know,
Mayank and Patidar.
Mayank, those 10 balls, and then Patidar for what, 15 balls or something.
No, there are bigger problems
that was a challenge.
on the playoffs, which I'll come to in a second. But just on this game, I think good sign for Nitish Reddy and Indian cricket that he's bowling again. Believe that he wasn't cleared to bowl by the centre of excellence for a large part of the season. And we broke the numbers down last year, bowled nearly 15 or 16 overs in a successful campaign to the final for SRH. He seems to have made a small but significant contribution to the ball.
He did really bowl well. I thought the 2 overs that he bowled was crucial. I mean, he got Mayank out in the first over, and then that 15th over was critical, because there he gave only 4 runs and then followed up by that Malinga's over. Those 2 overs certainly changed the momentum towards SRH. Otherwise, I think RCB were cruising, you know, from that stage. So it's a good sign. He's an all-rounder, and India play England in Test match cricket. He's batted well in Australia. He got 100. So in that sense, it augurs well for him. Of course, his batting at the IPL and also his fielding, he seems to be faster than the ball for some reason. And you know, I think his bowling effort should give him a bit of confidence.
He was running around maybe looking for news of tomorrow's squad early.
Very good, Dustin. I'm just trying to think of how much, because he's had a tough season with the bat, it would have been nice that he'd been able to contribute with the ball. Like Dustin said, he was able to read Patidar better, or Jitesh better than the other way around, which tells you something of his cricket smarts as a bowler. And it helps as an all-rounder yourself on when you can just manage to contribute with the ball. Perhaps your batting can pick up along the way.
Definitely. It's a great advantage, you know, because one component of your game can be slightly off, and you can recapture form in that area that's dropping off with the other discipline. So, you know, that may well happen for him as it unfolds. Yes, he's had a difficult year, but I think he was under the radar last year. You know, no one really knew what he was capable of doing. He had a breakout season. We're all like, wow, you know, this guy's amazing. And the way he is effortlessly hitting sixes, we haven't even seen anything close to that this season. But that's quite common for a player in their second year, because suddenly, you know, the finger goes on them and the homework's done. How do we bowl to this guy? And I've noticed this year there's been a lot more short balls targeted at the body line. So that's something that he's going to have to work on as he goes forward, not just in this format, but in all formats.
Let's just try and understand this RCB innings a little more. It was a funny start where Kohli was the dominant partner and Salt seemed to take his time. There was also all the questions about them not bowling as well. 231 was surely 20-30 above more than what they would have liked to concede. And go back to the point of whether they were undercooked for this game.
Yeah, I think from the bowling perspective, yes. I mean, we did say that, you know, 231 is a steep target for them. And I thought, you know, yes, Kohli was the dominant partner because Salt hasn't played, what, in 2 months or in a month now.
Yeah.
The last game that he played was in April, what, 24th or something. So it takes a while for him to get going. And the moment he started those, you know, hitting those boundaries, then it became evident that he was back in control. One of them had to bat through. And it had to be, in my view, Kohli, because, you know, Salt, you know that the kind of risks that he takes, he's a boundary hitter, he's bound to get out at some stage. But Virat is someone who sort of takes those calculated risks.
Yeah.
And
Do you think he was affected by Salt's lack of impact in the early parts?
Possibly because of that, he sort of had to take that dominant role. But if he had stayed on maybe beyond that 6-7 overs, then probably, you know, things would have been different for RCB.
They were still going at 12 and over though, even after the power play. And I think with Kohli, I mean, that was a ball you would expect him to cut for 4. Sometimes these things just happen.
Was it really? Or that's an important
It was not
wicket by
that
Harsh.
short. Probably, you know, the length was good. He got a bit of bounce because of his action. You know, he has a really good action.
He's an impressive player. His
Very
figures
impressive.
may not suggest it, but he's one to look out for, isn't he?
Of course, yeah. He has the potential. I mean, he's, what, domestic cricket, he's been the highest wicket taker. So obviously, he has all the works in terms of bowling left arm spin, and he looks pretty good. Yeah, you know, I agree. I mean, it's just that last 5 overs, you know, RCB sort of fell through, even with the ball and the bat.
Harsh Dubey is really one to look out for. He's in the A squad as well. Cummins' bowling form seems to be picking up. Ishan Malinga seems to be one to really look out for the Sunrisers as well. They'd be thinking of, you know, whether They had a few more points under the belt. What kind of team, what kind of season? This would have been Tom.
Yeah, look, Isham Malinga has been really good at the back end of this season, and I just think he adds a really nice point of difference to that bowling attack. You know, he is different. He's like, you know, obviously Lathith Malinga, which we've seen for so many years, dominate with that slinging action. He's not quite in that category, but he does offer them a real point of difference, and he's nailing his Yorkers.
Yeah.
You know, and he did that so well in a couple of critical overs towards the back end, which made it impossible.
If you compare the two batting innings, was that actually the game here? I mean, I know we got 160 odd, but when you've got a above par score, the kind of innings even like an Aniket Verma played or a Klaasen played, RCB missed those kind of high impact innings. How much of this game was decided in the first half, do you think?
Yeah, I agree that you needed at least one batter to, in that, especially after the start that RCB got, one of them to sort of get that 20, 30 in 10 balls or 12 balls.
Yeah.
That didn't happen for RCB.
Yeah.
At the same time, what Ishan Kishan did for SRH, somebody to bat through, you know, get that 60, 70 to become 90 or even 100. RCB had to do that, especially with one batter shot.
I think that
someone
was-
like Tim David not able to bat.
I think that was the big thing, because at the 14 over mark it was the same situation really in first and second innings, but the difference was that you had somebody who had opened and was still batting and then batted through to the end. I think if one of RCB's top two had batted through to the end, it could have been a different result.
So many things where RCB almost felt like there was a conspiracy against that chase for whatever reason. And Tim David, forget today's innings, playoffs. What does that look like to you in your experience? Hamstring?
Yeah.
How big a miss?
It looks like a hamstring, and it looks like first grade hamstring. And what that basically means is it's the lowest grade that you can have, but it's still 10 to 15 days recovery as a minimum. So that will count him out, no doubt, unless they get a scan, which they will do probably tomorrow morning, and it shows very little damage, which is probably unlikely looking the way he's moving.
I'm just wondering and hoping that could it have gotten more or aggravated by him batting those 5-6 balls, trying to hit it as well, even though he wasn't running?
Yeah, possibly, but you can do tests, you know, so the physio would have done certain tests to determine, you know, what the significance of the tear is, and they may have made a decision there and then that this is probably his last game, and we're just going to roll the dice, and if he goes out there and bombs 5-6s, we've won this game and we've secured our position.
I believe Jitesh Sharma said we were a bit rusty. Now to think of returning to restart the league, rained out game, 2-3 days in Bengaluru where you couldn't even train properly because of the weather, quickly having to readjust mentally that, oh, this game is now in Lucknow, where Sunrisers played the previous game and had some time. And now how big a factor is this for the rest of it? They need to pick things up in a couple of days, but do you sense this is the kind of result that can derail what was a very good-looking campaign?
Yeah, it could, potentially, how they sort of cope from this in the next couple of days when they play Lucknow.
Yeah.
And Lucknow, you know, won their last game.
What a weird time of the
comfortably.
league.
Well, Markram's gone. That's one bonus
Yeah,
for him.
that's-
Markram's gone. Yeah,
he's
so
gone back to South
they only have to deal with Marsh, Pooran, and Pants ready to wake up.
Ishan Kishan
So he might open. So Pant might open the batting actually in that game. With Markram's gone, that may be his sort of license. Okay, you go at the top of the order, and you can just see it nearly right it now. You know, Pant's always wanted to open throughout the season. He opens in the last game and gets 100.
Well, I just like to say that the SRH RCB game seems to bring out a different side of Tom Moody with all these creative ideas, and you must have taken some sweet pleasure in them being 170 for 2 or 3, looking like they were going to win it, and then suddenly.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I've admired RCB for many years, but you know, obviously, there's a part of me that likes seeing Sunrisers win as well.
Of course, fair enough. Sorry, Dustin.
No, I'm
please.
saying that the RCB, there's two things that they should not do. One is watch this show, because we're all talking about how this could be, you know, the tripping up point. The other thing is they need to stay off Twitter, because there are a lot of people there putting this thing up about how apparently in 2020 and in 2021, Sunrisers beat RCB in a very similar situation where they could have been top two. RCB ended up playing the eliminator and lost both those eliminators. So I mean, it's just maybe a coincidence, but hopefully that's not playing on their minds.
It's like you look at how deep we're digging over here. The universe is. No, that's not all. I mean, RCB got to pick themselves up. Positives. Kohli still looks like nothing's changed.
Yeah.
After a 2-week layoff.
Positive is also Phil Salt.
Yeah.
Coming back into form, because I think that's the pair that will have to sort of do the job for RCB. Without Tim David, I think it's important that Kohli and Salt take the game away from the opposition.
Let's be fair. Looks like Patidar is not fully fit either.
No.
He's not fielding. He's not captaining. What about Josh Hazlewood? You really want to be at full strength come the playoffs, and I would like to think Hazlewood wouldn't mind a game before the playoffs. I don't know if he's available.
No, I believe
for
he's
Lucknow.
only going to be available from the playoffs onwards. I don't think he's available.
But surely, I mean, they'd welcome him with open arms.
But to be honest with you, if you're banking all your chips on Josh Hazlewood coming in and turning your fortunes, I think you're looking at the wrong way to try to be successful in this year's IPL. I think, yes, he's an important piece to their bowling attack, and he's been very good this year, but I think that once you fall down that trap of, he's coming back into the side, we're going to be okay, or this person's suddenly coming back into form, it's a collective effort that gets you over the line in big matches, and not just the arrival of Josh Hazlewood after being away for, how long has he been in Australia now? 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 8th of May, 9th of May is when it got called off the tournament. So, and he'll be back before the playoffs, which is going to be 29th.
It is critical though, because Ngidi is going to be leaving before the playoffs for the World Test Championship final.
Yeah.
So,
Blessing Muzar Abani has been named as a temporary replacement. Will be coming off a test match in England. So there's all that. I want to take some comments. Let's take those from you lot. Kolotamani says the Patidar Mayank 26 of 29 started the slide. David's injury casts a huge shadow on RCB going forward. If you're in that RCB dugout now, do you sense they've got to be a little flexible or creative with their batting if they find themselves in similar situations come the playoffs? That Patidar searching to find form and Mayank at 3 replacing Padikkal. What can they do? What can they possibly do? Would you still put faith in Mayank? Would you try something different? It's not like they played a lot of other players, but something like this to just break up what happened today. What can they do?
I've got one idea which I was thinking about. If Tim David's injured and out, Livingston would be the obvious one to come into the side. I'd bat him at 3.
Maybe at 3.
Yeah, because you've still got Shepherd, and Jitesh looked good tonight. Started to strike the ball. So forget about the back end of the innings. Get the front end of the innings sorted, and if it may well be the tonic that Livingston needs just to get his season up and running.
I mean, teams with Mayank also faced this situation in the past. If you drop him too low, he sometimes becomes redundant as a batter also then.
Yeah, it gets difficult. So I guess what you don't want is someone like a Mayank and Patidar to bat together.
Right.
So maybe get Livy in between.
Yeah.
That's probably something that...
both padded up.
Yeah. And if things go well, then maybe Livingston goes ahead. And you need that flexibility. You can't have, in a team like this, you can't have a set batting order. I know batters like those positions known, but if they know their roles, then it becomes that much easier to sort of maneuver.
Okay. No one's going to retain Kohli at 3, right? With Mayank opening.
No, that's where I think they have the Padikkal's, sort of contribution over
He's
the
a
last...
big miss.
Yeah, he's a big miss.
Big miss as a form player.
Yeah. So it's a big miss and a left-hander at that position.
Yeah, which is interesting that we're talking like this because last year, he wasn't even in conversations because he wasn't playing.
Yeah. He was also picked up as part of the accelerated round.
Yes.
Yeah. So, he's a bit like a lot of these uncapped players that have come out of nowhere and, had a terrific season.
He had a tough season for LSG last year, from what I remember.
Very, absolutely. Yeah, he was left out of the side halfway through.
How would you have the conversation just after this kind of game with RCB? You still have a game, and you could get to 19, and looking at how results go, that might be enough for a top 2. But let's say you miss out on a top 2. I mean, how would you sort of treat this game?
I think you need to move on very quickly. I think you've got to patch up your wounds, and they've got a few scars there. But I don't think you dwell on it too much because they've done a lot of really good things this season, and that should be the focus. try to draw out some of the the positives of this game. The opening partnership of 80, Salt back in the side, finding some form, hitting 5 6s. So try to keep it upbeat and try to keep it as positive as possible.
Okay.
Because now's not the time for people to be second guessing what they're doing or what their role is in the side.
This one from Harshit Mehta, is this season end performance by SRH going to overshadow the issues they face throughout the season? Maybe they'll believe they don't need to change anything and they might have the same issues next season. What does this late surge by SRH tell us?
They're a very good side, and we all thought that at the beginning of the tournament. Everyone on this couch had them in the top 4.
We did. Yeah.
Did you have? Anil?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
All right, go on.
you're an absolute genius. You answer this question.
No, because I thought the spin department would be the challenge.
Yeah.
And even I know Shami coming back, yes, but he was coming back from an injury.
Yeah.
If Shami was regular, how you've seen Shami bowl, then yes, it was different. But with the spin department, I feel you need a spinner, good spinner, someone who's experienced. Yes, they're all potential, but maybe it'll take time just to put pressure on these young spinners to do the job.
In fairness, though, that doesn't seem like they have too many holes to fill, though.
Yeah.
This looks a good team,
No, it
even
looks
though
a
they
good,
find themselves.
Yes,
They have.
A couple of out of form guys. I thought their fielding efforts were
Right.
something that they could have picked up. They missed a lot of catches during this tournament, and that sort of hurt them.
I mean, little consistency from Kishan might have helped through the season. It seems like you've got 2 outstanding innings,
Yeah, got the bookends.
just blanks in the middle.
But regardless of how these 2 games went, I don't think SRH were ever going to release a lot of players. Okay, maybe Shami is the one player they'll consider. Maybe Ishan was the other player they were considering, and maybe he will now stay in the squad. But it's not like they were going to release any of their retention. So I don't think it's, in that sense, it's not papering over cracks where they will then suffer next season. They were always going to retain most of these players, I think.
All right. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I was wondering when you said Anil's a genius when he didn't pick his SRH's top 4. I'm trying to think who he did pick in his top 4.
I picked 5.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Out
doesn't
of
work.
which, no, I know. No. At that stage,
Let's hear the
stage,
5.
I'll hear the 5. Hear the 5 out. So I picked Mumbai.
Right.
I picked GT, I picked RCB, and I picked either Punjab or Delhi, because at that point in time,
Wow.
I thought the match would be between Punjab and Delhi. I expected tomorrow's game to be the decider of who would get into that top 4.
Tournament,
You made
all
it
the way
yesterday or
Did you actually pick this
I did.
before the tournament?
Not before the tournament. It was, I think, after the first 5 games or 4
yesterday.
games. 5. Yeah. Just yesterday. No, not yesterday.
Genius.
Oh my God. All right. That is awesome. What else do we have? Imagine if the DC game hadn't been washed out. SRH could have still finished as high as 5. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of those results.
Everyone's got those stories.
Would RCB be thinking now would have rather had the rain in Bangalore?
No, but
Why
there was
did
no
this-
rain tonight.
No rain in Bangalore?
Oh, really?
I don't think so. No, not to my knowledge.
There you go. They don't win there, so
Yeah,
they
so
win on the road.
this was technically a designated home game. So they win against Lucknow and Lucknow on Tuesday.
That will be 7-7.
That's a record.
Yeah.
And I think they definitely need to, right? All right, we can pretty much leave it here. Ishan Kishan has been named player of the match. I think that's fair. Pretty much, even though the bowlers.
Pretty special knock.
I also saw Krunal get hit wicket, and I remember Hardik has got hit wicket in similar fashion.
Yeah.
So the brothers joined that. I saw yesterday both the Marsh brothers have become the first set of brothers to score hundreds in the IPL.
In the IPL.
Long way apart.
It was kind of disappointing to see the way RCB fizzled out because, as you mentioned, net run rate is important. So even once you knew that, okay, you're probably not going to win, at least scrape together another 15-20 to make it a bit closer.
I mean, let's see if that's how significant that can be. Points table, and now they slide below Punjab actually. So Punjab Delhi tomorrow, such a big game in Jaipur. If Punjab get the points, and let's say RCB win their last game, Punjab have a tough final game against MI. So in a very realistic possibility of PBKS and RCB finishing on 19 points each, today's result could be significant. Decide
Yeah, it
only
is,
by run
because
rate.
every point won is about 28 runs. So that's something that you need to think of. And today it was 42 run loss, so which is almost 1.5, 0.15, 0.16, and that's the difference.
Looking at where the game, how it played out in the last few overs, though, could you have found a way to get 15 more or 20
Well, they didn't have
more?
the batters, did they? It was
Yeah.
it was the bowlers that were at the crease, so they were still feeling that they could win the game with their batters, but then suddenly the bowlers were left with 40 or 50 left
And
to
David's
try
inability to run twos.
Yeah.
would
So
have
they were
added to that.
snookered.
Well, they'd like to just put this game behind very quickly, RCB, and they need to. Otherwise, they're potentially missing out on a top 2 spot, but they have bigger problems. Tim David's form Tim David's fitness and the form of some of their key players returning. Well, let's hope that they manage to get that right before the Lucknow game. Gentlemen, rapid fire review. You all know how this works. Quick fire responses to wrap up the game. Tom, let me start with you. What did Ishan Kishan do right for his first innings of substance since the opening game?
I think his shot selection early on was a little bit more cautious than what we've seen previously, but then he identified the bowlers that he felt he could take down, and that was primarily the spin.
All right. Anil, for you, 173 for 3 RCB in 15 and a half overs. What went wrong for the middle order today?
I think, you just needed those 5-ball partnerships, 8-ball partnerships. They didn't have that. They were looking to sort of hit boundaries and those 2 quick wickets, 1 run out of Rajat Patidar and then the same over Shepherd getting out. I think that Ishan Malinga's over changed the game.
All right, Dustin, take this one. Could Tim David's injury be a season-defining one for RCB?
Yeah, it could. I think, just when they got news Hazelwood's coming back, they now have this blow. They'll need Livingston to just, suddenly do what he maybe, he is capable, but yeah, they'll be banking on him to come good.
All right, back-to-back wins for the first time this season, Tom. What are Sunrisers Hyderabad's biggest gains from these 2 games?
I think identifying what their retentions look like next year a little bit clearer. And I agree with Dustin. I think the majority of them will stay, particularly Ishan Kishan. There was a little bit debate before today, but he's closed the door on that, I would have thought. Shami's the only one that's got a shadow cast over him, I'd say.
Okay. Anil, what are Bangalore's biggest lessons from this game, looking at the playoffs?
Oh, it's something that they need to sort of, like Jitesh mentioned, maybe prepare. They were not ready for the surprise of shift of venue.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now they'll have to sort of really quickly get past Tim David's loss for the tournament.
All right. Well, 5 games to go, so all of you can chip in on this. Wins for these eliminated teams night after night. You can have another crack at predicting your top 2 come Tuesday. Dustin?
I'm going to say GT and Punjab.
Ooh. Tom?
I'm the same.
GT and Punjab. Anil?
Top 2? I think GT and...
Make sure it's one of the teams you picked.
Yeah, I think Punjab.
Wow, so panel goes with GT and Punjab, who you think have the favourable run. Punjab Kings playing Delhi and Mumbai. But we'll see how this goes. No one should be brave to predict this week. What a weird week this is turning out to be. Gujarat beating Lucknow, Sunrisers beating RCB. If that trend is to be followed, Delhi, Punjab tomorrow at Jaipur. Let's see what happens. Big thank you to Tom Moody and Anil Kumble. We'll be back with them tomorrow. Dustin, you'll be back as well. Small matter of India's test match squad announcement. It's a new era. Dawn of a new era under a new captain. Don't know who that is, but we'll find out by the time we're live tomorrow. And we'll have the chat with Anil, Tom and Dustin as well. Join us for that. Punjab versus Delhi. The race for the top 2 is anything but done and decided. So we look forward to your company then on Nexa Presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout. Good night.
Ready for it.
Thrilled for it.
Presenting France with Turbo Booster Jet Engine.
Nexa.